Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Andrews, and if it's Friday morning at 8 o'clock, it is, of course, Voice Chat Fridays with the one and only Shyamala Prayaga, who is the founder and CEO of the Digital Assistant Academy and Ford's head conversational AI designer for their autonomous vehicle lines. Welcome, Shyamala. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Lee.
And Delvine Mahal, am I pronouncing that right? Or Mal?
Yeah, no.
Okay. And Delvine is actually a student of the DA Academy, and we're going to talk to her today specifically, and Shamla too. They both made huge career changes to get into user experience and or voice conversational AI design, and the question is why. So first of all, Shamla, you came from an architect's background. You are a formally trained architect of buildings or bridges or both or what?
Yeah, so I am a civil engineering. My formal education has been in civil engineering, designing houses. It was more about, everything related to construction, houses and buildings and railway tracks and everything. And it was a very fun place to be. That was my passion, I would say. And then after my civil engineering drawing was my passion, and one of the areas where I was very well versed with. And I started earning very early on while I was studying. I used to get government projects for engineering drawings, and I realized, like, well, this is something I can do, because my aunt was used to work for forestry, and she used to get me a lot of projects to do engineering drawings and stuff. So that is when I thought, like, yes, I should be doing something different. And I moved into architecture, and became an architect, started doing a lot more engineering drawings for apartments, houses and stuff. It was fun for a year, and then I was feeling very stagnant at what I'm doing. It felt like, I'm doing the same kind of drawing and design, and the houses and patterns are the same, although there were challenges because land size is different and all, and there were user needs and all. But somewhere, I was feeling I'm meant to do more than just drawing and like architecting just these apartments and condos. And that is when accidentally I got into technology and user experience and design without knowing that it is UX.
Wait a minute. So how did that happen? I mean, you don't just wake up one morning in an architectural or
No.
civil engineering firm and then you wake up in an office doing UX. Where was that
Yeah, it
transition?
was interesting. It was interesting. So I used to work in this firm, but at the same time, I was still doing my engineering, like I mentioned, right? Like I was still continuing my engineering. And at the same time, what happened was my sister was a computer engineering graduate. And we were in the same college. She was my senior. And she used to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and all these stuffs. And those were alien concepts to me back then, but I used to enjoy those terminologies, and I was like, well, I want to learn about computers. And then I joined an institute to learn about computers, technology, and all of those things. Interesting enough, when I was doing that, the founder thought that I have good caliber, and he asked me if I can teach. So I was like, yes, I would love to do that. So I was doing parallel jobs, my full-time job, and then mornings, before my job, I used to go and teach computers, like I still remember, like, the basics of computers, or C, C++, and Fox Pro and all these things. So that is when he introduced me to web development, and he was like, you should be learning about internet and web.
Hold on a
And
second, Travel. Back up. Wait a minute. Here you are, the civil engineer. You start taking classes and you're taking programming classes. Is
as
that right?
well, yeah, as well,
And then you
because
wind up teaching those classes?
yeah, it was so funny. It was so funny.
Seriously, who are
Yeah,
you? This is not normal. Like this is really what.
I know. Opportunities just came to me like that, for one or the other reason. I don't know why, and it still happens. I just told you about it the other day.
No,
That
because you have a big brain and you have a huge purpose
so
in this life. That's why.
I'm like lucky. So that is when, when he taught me about internets and all. He actually, back then, there were no, I did not have a personal computer, so he asked me to go to cyber cafes and learn about internet and what this is and all. And when I was doing that, I got so fascinated. I was like, boy, I want to design websites. And then I got so immersed into learning about the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, how to design the websites and all of those things. Then I started taking freelancing projects for, doing some website development. And then by chance, I got a very big break with America Online in India. And that's how my journey started with UX.
That's unbelievable. Seriously. That's unbelievable. So you are the purple squirrel that companies are looking for. That you have the technology, the engineering, the program management, the process. Oh my God. Delvine, let's hear it. Where did you come from? You're muted. Where was your original background and how did you come to voice?
So I studied digital communication design at university. That was kind of, you're looking at like modeling and animation using software like Cinema 4D. It was very kind of intense when it came to that. It was a lot of like coding involved, game design, that sort of thing. I left university, graduated. I kind of realized that that's not what I wanted to do. Stumbled upon UX quite early after leaving. So this is like 2015, but it was just very difficult for me after having just left university to then go straight back into trying to study UX design. And I needed to obviously get a job at the time and, start making money. And then I started looking into digital marketing quite early, and I sort of learned marketing, doing online sort of courses or anything that I could do, reading, that sort of thing. And I fell into marketing for about 5 years. And it was only until 2019, where I started to look into UX again. So digital marketing and UX they do sort of go hand in hand, especially with like websites and things like that. And, it kind of linked for me, sort of thing. It all came together. And in 2019, I started to look into UX design while I was working in marketing. I created a couple of projects. And one of the projects that I created was an app for mental health. And during my research process, I saw that it might be a good idea to create an onboarding process that included a chatbot. But it was just very much like the dialogue of it. It wasn't any of the technical side. It was just like, copywriting. I know marketing from my last job in the marketing team that I was in. It was just a copywriter that was writing the script for a chatbot. That was what it was for me at the time. And then it was from there. It was really from UX where I was like, yeah, okay, actually, you know what? I need to look into voice. I'm really fascinated by it, especially when I see it in cars and I see it with Alexa. Everyone's got Alexa, most people have Alexa. It was just fascinating to me. I was like, yeah, I really want to look into this. And then it was only, I think early this year, right, that I came across Shyamala and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make the move and do this. And this is what I wanted to do. So it all links really, it all kind of flows, I think.
So it's interesting though, because digital marketing and user experience, there are distinct differences. One is so much of a bigger market kind of focus, right? And the other is definitely the user. And, one is more about functionality, I think, and the other is about that feeling that you get from it, even though they're somewhat connected and tied. So you're using both sides of your brain. Right? What's the both of you are. What's the visual? What's the interaction? What's the technology behind it? Meaning, how do things actually work? So you're combining both sides of your brain, and it's kind of joined here in this one area. So where do you see? I mean, this is a big question that people are asking themselves today. Like, what's my career trajectory? What's that going to look like? So Delvine, both of you could go into pretty much anything you want to go into, but Delvine, it almost sounds like you're working towards a product management kind of thing. You're really digging that marketing as well as that putting that product together. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's what I like. I really like being involved with the product a bit more hands-on. I mean, from my experience, just working in marketing, I don't think I was getting enough of that, to be honest. I wanted more to get involved with the actual product than just be marketing the product and not having really an input on how it works or what we need or what we don't need. So I remember speaking to a manager once and I said, oh my God, I love this chatbot. And she replied saying, oh my God, I love leads. And that's when I was like, yeah, I don't want to go to.
And I think that's exactly where the difference is between marketing and UX and everything else. In fact, we have, I don't know, again, I think I've mentioned her before, but Debbie Levitt is actually speaking to the AMA, American Marketing Association, about this very topic, because marketing will take on something and then, kind of, blow it up and get the word out. So they're really all about that, big announcement, the making something sound really good. Whereas UX and conversational is like, does it work? Let's make sure it works first. So what would you say, Shyamala, if you're working with marketing members, how do you work with marketing? How does that work?
So, well, I mean, I do work with them all the time, but depends on different kind of use cases, right? Like, first of all, what is the purpose and all of those things. So for me, the interaction with the marketing team is different. My goal is basically, from the autonomous standpoint, right? Like, I'm trying to understand what kind of use cases should we be having, and how can we generate more and more not generate leads in our case, but mostly, it's all about creating that trust in the autonomous vehicle. So, but I work with them very closely for multiple reasons. So the first thing, for example, when I was working with the autonomous digital assistant, was the use cases itself. I was thinking about, what kind of use cases should we have? Should it all be just, play music kind of things, or is there anything else we have to? So I had to work with them to understand from the customer standpoint. And one, I would say, like, yes, you are a UX designer, and you would have a little bit of understanding about your customer segment, but marketing are the people who interact with them day in and day out, so they know the personas and target audiences better than you.
Interesting.
So I've seen that, and especially here, so I would just go to them and I would ask them, like, okay, what kind of audiences are we looking at? And in the AV, it's very new, but in the traditional, it was still fine for me, because, well, you have history worth of 100 years, and you know what kind of users have been coming in and using the product and all of those things. So they have a lot of interesting data which I was able to collect, based of which we knew, like, yes, these use cases make sense and we should be looking into it and tapping into it. So for me, it's like that.
Interesting. Dalveen, let's go to you. So how are the dots connecting between your understanding of digital marketing and conversational? How are you going to create that bridge?
I think, like Shyamala mentioned, the biggest one, I think, is personas, and knowing who you're targeting with the product. I think that's massive. That's one of the biggest things I learned. It has to be knowing who your target audience is and who you're creating for, because everyone is so different. From my experience in marketing, I don't know if that's just my experience. I don't know, everyone's experience is different, but I think UX design, when I was doing the projects I was doing, I did look into personas quite in depth in comparison to when I worked in marketing. And maybe that's just because I wasn't in the right team at the time, and maybe, that would have helped. But I think they both go hand in hand like that when it comes to personas, just from my experience. I think that was probably the biggest link that I see. And also the product as well. I think product marketing, I've never worked in product marketing, but when I have worked with people in product marketing, I think they have a much more stronger relationship with people in the UX team. And that's something I think would have really enjoyed doing or having some experience in. So I think, I think for me, just from what I can see and at the top of my head, I would say it's a lot to do with personas and really understanding the user. And then making sure your marketing and any of the content you're creating really reflects that, because I think content creation as well, which is more of what I was doing, you had to really know who your audience was for that. You can't just be creating anything, and it had to be at the right time. They should be getting the message at the right time. So yeah, I think there's so many factors. It really does make a lot of sense to be working closely with the product team, and I think marketing teams probably should be doing that more if they're not already, because I never got to do that as much, which I think would have been really, really good, to be honest.
Interesting. So in some cases, product marketing has a strong relationship with UX, in other cases it just doesn't.
I think they do, from the colleagues I had that were in product marketing. I think, but I don't know if it was I think all marketing should have that relationship, because everyone's involved with some element of this. It shouldn't just be, the middle person shouldn't just be the product marketing person who creates, product sheets and fact sheets and things like that. It should also be people that are doing any sort of customer facing content, whether it's working on the website or white papers or doing a blog, things like that. I think it would have been really good for that relationship to develop a bit more. I would have really liked that. And I did try, when I was working in my previous role, I did a lot of blogs and worked with writers and worked with key stakeholders, that knew the product to really create good content that was of value. So yeah, I think it all really, really fits together properly. And I think it really, I think people should be doing it more often if they're not already.
So your career, if I were to really map out your career, you came in through digital communications, right? Is that right? Digital communications or digital?
Yeah, so digital communication design. It was more like animation and things like that.
Wow. All right. So, so digital communication design, then you get into this marketing role, digital marketing, and now you're into voice. And so now I keep hearing, and I've been hearing this from you for a while, is all about this product side. So if I look at the through line between in both of your stories, it is really about getting closer to the end user and that product. That's really where how do they actually utilize the product? And it just so happens that voice is the newest way of using products, and you guys both get turned on by that. I think that the thread I'm also seeing here is that you guys like what's shiny and new.
Yeah.
See, it's, I mean, I wouldn't say shiny and new kind of thing. It's about the latest technology and where the potential is.
Okay,
right?
That's shiny and new, Shyamala. That's shiny. That is the definition of shiny and new.
When you put it like shiny and new, it feels like a small, young kid.
No, that is shiny and new. That is exactly. It is the new technology. It's the latest technology. It's the emerging technology. That is what's shiny and new. I don't care which way you slice it. And that's okay, because we need people to do that, right? And that's how you keep your portfolio fresh. And it's also how you keep yourself marketable. We don't want to become stagnant in our career, especially if you're in creative or technology. If you start falling behind on understanding what technology is, what's happening in technology, your portfolio can go stale very soon. So I think that if anybody takes away a message, this is continual learning, right? Your careers are all about continual learning. Bhagavat asks, Dalveen, what inspires you every day to get going on voice domain? I see you come with varied experience, and I'm sure you still have potential to get back to the job market rather than learn skills. So how do you keep yourself inspired and engaged in the overall voice tech? Where do you see yourself better? So let's ask, he's got a number of questions in here. So let's ask the first question first. You're a continual learner, right? So at what point are you going to make that shift from continual learner to moving into a role and then continually learning? So that's the questions I'm hearing here.
I definitely am a continual learner. I think the amount of I just love learning. I think that's one of the things I've really noticed since I left university. I think for me, if I don't have that learning in me, if I don't continue doing that, you do get stagnant mentally. I notice the difference when I haven't done something for like 2 days. Well, that's a really long time. But I'm just saying, for example, if I have a weekend where I've done nothing, I really feel it on the Monday. I'm like, oh my God, like my brain has just, there's something triggered. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just not there. You have to have that momentum. Was that the first question, just about learning? I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, let's put that up again. So it's just about how do you keep yourself inspired every day to learn something new, and also thinking about a job, right? So he's really like, okay, where do I go first? The job, the learn, the job.
I think the learning first. So you know what you're saying and you know what you're doing. You have to have that understanding. Definitely. I think something that inspires me a lot is when I listen to podcasts, and for example, at the moment it's Clubhouse as well. When I've gone onto certain rooms and people are talking about these amazing things, I'm like, okay, I really need to. That drives me a lot to get going with that, because I want to be involved in this conversation at some point. I think once you know what you're talking about once you've got a bit of understanding and you've got a bit of experience, I think then it's worth going out there and applying. But I also think social media is really good, like Twitter, and sharing anything, like LinkedIn obviously as well, but just sharing your work and building a following that's similar to you, because they will like and share your content. Having a blog maybe, or writing about your learnings is good, either on Medium, like something like that, or a website if you've got that, I think is really helpful for me. So there's a few things. I think you just got to balance it out, and you'll know what's right for you, I think, when you're doing it, when you're in the process. You'll know yourself when the right time is to take the next step, I think.
Shyamala, let's talk about that for you. So how do you balance continual learning with actually doing the work?
Yeah, I feel like, Dalveen is my exactly copy, because I feel the same way. And for me, it's all about, I feel like technology is evolving every day, so there is continual learning. And like Dalveen, for me also, it's exactly the same kind of things, listening to the podcast, and uh, Clubhouse definitely has been one of the most interesting area now. But I also like writing a lot myself. So what I do is I try to do all the writing, whatever I have learned about, and then put it in a blog or a Medium post and things like that. And one more way I learn is by talking to people and talking with industry. So I started my own podcast, which is The Future is Spoken, for the very same reason, so that I can talk to people and I can learn from different people, their experiences and their life and what they are doing and all of those things. And when it comes to the job itself, well, I try to apply most of my learnings in the job. So constantly there is, like improvements even in the areas of what I am doing as well. So those are really interesting aspects of learning, because for me it's the same. If I don't have learning every day, my brain starts to feel like, okay, I am getting redundant, which I don't want. And that is very, very important for me. So constant learning is something I focus on, I strive for, and then try to apply those things, so and see how I can progress in my career using those things as well. So I think it's a kind of mix. So yeah, um, that's it. So Dalveen, what do you think, like how you been trying to keep yourself up to date with the industry?
I agree with you. I totally relate to that as well. I think there's so much available, like even with the course itself that we're doing, what I'm doing, there's so much content on there that you can consume, even like no matter where you are. So I try to do that at least daily, is to read or listen to a podcast, just so I can keep myself sort of motivated and inspired to continue in the process. Because it is, when you're working sort of on your own, it's very difficult. It's very easy to lose yourself. I also think with this course as well, the classmates or the students on the course, and we're having these sort of group sessions, I think is really helpful. I've noticed that's been really helpful for me. And I'm inspired by other people and the work they're doing. So I know like Adam, for example, is doing really good stuff, and talking to him and that kind of thing is really, really inspiring and motivating. because you're on the sort of same level as other people and you're not on your own, because obviously we're all working remotely.
Okay, what did I miss? Shyamala, it looks like you've got some light in your eyes. You okay over there?
Oh yeah, the sunlight is blessing me.
Yeah, is that what it's doing? Okay. So so the next question that I have, thank you for answering all of that. Looks like Shyamala is going to go adjust her screen. So Delvine, why did you choose DA Academy? Did you just answer that question? Is that what that was all about?
No.
Now, why did you choose DA? You had some, I mean, there's plenty of choices out there, right?
Yeah, there is actually. There's a few. There's not a lot. Well, there is a few actually, but they're all very different, and they're all, some are very. I don't know. I don't know. For me, I think I had to speak to Shyamala to really know. I just knew from having that conversation, I think, that it was the course for me because it was very in depth. Whereas some of the others that I'd seen, there was no. I don't know how much you could go into it. Like, I don't know how much you needed to know in terms of, like, you know, some courses were like, you have to do like a small course, a 10-week course, and then you go to the advanced process after. It was very like, there was no sort of clear direction with any of the ones I was seeing. I think a lot of them were a lot shorter as well. Most of them were quite short. So I was kind of questioning whether how much I would get out of that.
So when you say short, what's short to you?
10 weeks. That might be quite long for somebody, but I think there's only so much you can get in 10 weeks. I think you need a lot more time actually than that, maybe double even minimum. I think from my experience, I think, you know, the less time there is, that's the only thing you're going to get out of it. So you obviously want to really be a bit logical like that as well. And that might suit people. They might just, you know, you might be in marketing and you just want to have a bit of insight. And that's perfect. But I think if you're going to do a career transition completely, I think you really need that full sort of that proper course that's really going to get you from zero to hero.
A little more in depth. Oh, 0 to hero. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
So, what has been the biggest challenge for you in making this switch? Because this is not a small switch. This is a pretty big switch.
Yeah, it is. The first thing I asked, I don't know if Shyamala remembers, but one of the first things I was worried about was what the job market was like and if this is a thing. Because I spoke to a few friends of mine and they were like, is that even a job? Like, do people do this? You know, for them it's unreal. You know, they're not used to this. So I was like, I hope this is something that's actually happening. You know, you do get people actually know about this, companies know about this and actually need these roles. So I think that was my biggest concern, I think. Because to me, this is a very fascinating industry.
And what have you learned since then? Do you think there's roles out there?
Oh, yeah.
Shyamala and I are laughing like that's why she started the school, because she couldn't hire enough people. So that was one of the first questions I asked Shyamala. I said, Shyamala, on top of everything else you're doing, why are you? She goes, Lee, there's not enough people to do the work. So she's growing her own crop of talent, right? And so, you know, and she doesn't want you guys to have to struggle the way that she did and the pioneers did in this space. So that's great. So what are you doing in terms of finding a job? What's your path there?
So my path here at the moment is building my portfolio, which I'm doing. I think that's the biggest thing I'm trying to do at the moment, and really get my head around the different terminologies there are, because there's a lot of understanding you need to have around different technologies, like speech technologies, for example. You know, that whole process of how actual voice assistant works. It's quite easy for us to talk into one and think, oh, this is very simple. But if you look into the actual process behind it, it's very mind-blowing, actually. Yeah. So I think when I've got a firm, you know, understanding, and I've built my second project, I think, you know, then I'm going to be looking towards, you know, applying and also working with you, obviously, to get to get.
Yeah, you don't have a choice there.
No, no.
So yeah, that's interesting. But so you're building your portfolio through your studies first, and then you're going to start showcasing some of your work. But you're not going to be waiting until you're done the course to get your information out there, right? You're going to
no, definitely not. I'm putting my portfolio together at the moment already with my first project, so I can obviously showcase that. I know the work I'm doing with the research papers and things like that I can start sharing across my network. So I'm doing things obviously to get to that bit where I'm like, yeah, I can apply properly.
Okay. All right. So we are now at 30 minutes right on the nose. Thank you so much for joining us, Delvine. I expect to see great things in your career. And Shyamala, I have no idea what you're going to be doing next. That is just the sky's the limit for you. All right. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.